Welcome to Office Hour Week 23 about the evolution, starting the evolution. And I made a small PowerPoint Google slideshow for you. And let's start what evolution is. So this is a population. And by time and through natural selection, let's check what would happen with this population. This population is way too big, so many, and the resources are limited, as well as the predation is excessive. So what would happen with this population? For example, the big ones will be eaten by predators, and also the yellow ones can really stick out. And those are the ones that they will make it. The smaller ones, different colors, yes, that's totally fine, but more brown ones that they can hide in the sand or in an area, so the predators will not find them. And so natural selection acts on a population. The more success, the organisms that they are more fit to their environment, they are the fittest ones, not because they have great muscles or something extraordinary, but they can avoid, for example, the predation. They will pass on their genetic trait into their offsprings, so they can live, but also they can reproduce. That's super important. For the fitness is basically reproductive success. They can produce more offsprings and pass on their heritable traits to their offsprings. Okay. That's one of them. Now, we have to deal with the little bit of the evolution, the type of evolutions, because you will see that many times. And there are two evolutions at this point, but we have to tackle the divergent evolution. So this is a common ancestor. And this common ancestor, this is not only one, it's a bunch of them, and probably they moved to different areas of the world, and they started to mate with each other, and mutation kicks in, because that's why we have new traits, heritable traits by mutation. We cannot just learn those traits, but it's heritable. And now we have two different birds, and when they do not interact with each other, they cannot reproduce fertile offsprings. We say this led into two different species. That will be the speciation, the macro evolution. Okay, so the convergent evolution, on the other hand, we have different species, but they will share some traits that very similar to each other, but they are not the same. For example, eye formation. My eye, I can use it to see stuff. The bug has an eye too that can see stuff, but my eye is different from a bug's eye, structurally totally different. But the environmental pressure, both on the bugs and both on us, and the mutations created something, some cells that can detect the light. Same with the wings. Bird wing is totally different structure compared to the butterfly wing. But the environmental pressure and mutation through environmental pressure produced some traits, some characteristics for different organisms that they do not relate to each other, different species, that they share that feature. So that is a convergent evolution. They do not share common ancestors compared to the divergent evolution. Environment, how the environment affect the evolution. Now, we might just talk about microevolution at this point. Microevolution, that means same species, but different phenotype ratio in the population. So it started before, let's go back before 1850. That's the Industrial Revolution that started in England. Coal burning, there was no coal burning beforehand. So this is a tree, and we have pepper moth. Pepper moth can come in two different colors due to mutation. It can be light colored or dark colored. I drew one dark colored pepper moth on the tree trunk, and I have 1, 2, and 3 light colored pepper moth on the tree trunk. We see only the dark color. Same if I would put a bird in here. The bird will be able to see the dark and will eat the dark, and the fitted one is the light colored one because it can avoid the predation, can reproduce, pass on its genes for the future generation. Now, after the Industrial Revolution after 1850, sod started to cover the tree trunks, and now same layout, a dark pepper moth and 3 light colored pepper moth are present on the tree trunk. Guess which ones are going to be spotted by a bird? Definitely the light colored. So the dark one has more advantage. The dark one is more fit to its environment to survive and pass on its genetic material. So we cannot really say which one is better, which one is more fit. In that environment, the light colored was more fit. In this environment, the dark colored one is more fit. More dark colored pepper moth will be present because they can avoid predation and they can reproduce to pass on their genetic material to their offsprings. So what they passing on must be heritable traits. And nowadays, because we have several instruments to take out the sod from big factories and whatever, so the sod is getting less and less on the tree trunks and the new trees. And now again, we have the white ones in here. I just put it on, but the bird from here can spot the dark color and will eat the dark colored again. So based on the environment, the traits, which trait is better depending on the environment. Okay, I think that is good. Oops. Now, same example, similar example to the bird beak, how the size of the bird beak, the depth of the bird beak changed due to environmental pressure. So this is the depth of the beak depth measured in millimeter. And now what they did, on the Galapagos Island, there were finches, and they measured their beak depth. And before 1977, they just made a histogram, and the histogram was like that. That's the green, okay? So here is something like this. The median, so the majority had 8.8 till 9.2, as most of the birds had that big depth. They were able to eat the seeds, crack the seeds, and everything was all right. Some of them had bigger beaks and smaller beaks. Now, in 1977, there was a big drought, and most of the plants did not produce the tinier or the regular seeds, or not seeds at all. So the birds, several of the birds died because of the drought. And after a couple of years, they checked the bird beak depth on the island. What they noticed that fewer the distribution of the bird beaks depth, they found the most bird beaks had 9.3 till 9.7 millimeter beak depth. So became more and more. See, before the drought, barely any of them had big high beak depth, but later on, as the drought was present, and only the fit organisms with bigger beaks were able to crack the dry seeds that they were left over on the island. They were able to make it to reproduce. They became more fit to their environment compared to the tiny beak depth one. So they were able to pass on their heritable traits, the size of the beak, and that's why the population's distribution relative to their beak size changed. So this is a micro evolution. The phenotype changed a bit due to environmental pressure. Now, depending on the natural select, depending on which way the selection goes, there's different types of natural selection. In here, this is the directional. Directional type of natural selection, directional type. Example totally for the bird beak depth. The next one is stabilizing type. We have a nice bell curve, but the extremes got taken out, eliminated. Classic example is the head of the fetus or the newborn that has to go through the birth canal. Now, if the head is too tiny, probably there are other factors that affect the livability of the fetus, so it will not make it to reproductive age to pass on that trait for the head size. But if the head is too big, back before the cesarean section happened, was not able to go through the birth canal, so got stuck, so it was not able to make it to reproductive age again to produce offsprings with that heritable trait. So this is the stabilizing. And the last one is the disruptive. Disruptive type of natural selection. So the nature picks the two extremes, but not the middle one. Either very tiny or very big wings, but no middle or neck, or I don't know. So kind of the extremes are going to be present, but not in the middle one. And the last one I would like to talk about is the evolution and the traits. So, in order to, for the natural selection to be able to work on the population and evolution, mutation has to take place. Without mutation, if every single organism is the same as the other ones in a population, there cannot be a natural selection for the fitter one and eliminate the ones that do not have the traits that would be fit for that environment. So the traits are different in a population. This is the prerequisite for natural selection. And why do we have different traits? I try to emphasize that the traits are not a wish list. It's not like I want to have wings because I would be more fit to my environment. Probably I would be more fit, but this is not my choice. This is not my wish list. It is basically, if I have a mutation in my genes that leads to form a wing, well, I can pass on that trait to my offspring, but it's not I would like to have it because it would be better for me. So something like Lamarck, and Lamarck was a person who explained the long necks of the giraffe in a way. Like the giraffes have long necks because they did this they extended their necks to reach to the leaves on the top of the tree, and by extending their necks, they became longer and longer, so most of the giraffes now have long necks. This is not how we explain evolution at this point. We use the Darwinian explanation, how Darwin would explain that. There were giraffes in an area, some of them with short neck and some of them with long neck, depending on the size, the height of the cervical vertebrae, many of them. The ones with taller cervical vertebrae were able to reach the treetop easier and get the food, compared to the ones that they had shorter neck and they were not able to reach to the top of the tree, and they had to compete with the zebra and other animals for food source. In this case, the ones with shorter neck didn't make it to reproductive age. They were not able to pass on their short neck trait to their offsprings. That's why we have long neck giraffes that were able to get the food, be able to be more fit compared to their environment, compared in the population, the long ones, and they were able to pass on their trait, heritable trait, to their offsprings to become longer necked organisms. And that's, I guess, it for evolution. This is the first section, and we will catch up next week on a little bit more on evolution. Have a good one.